Everyone, it's the Innovator's Mindset with Jana Lee. You didn't even know that was happening, did you? Listen, I am becoming fast friends with Jana Lee, and I actually just saw you on social media. I know you do some really incredible work. I know you are out of New Jersey, and I just been watching some of the stuff you post on Instagram, some of the stuff you post on social media, and I just really love your work, and I think it can impact so many people. I think there's a lot of ties to, obviously, podcast is titled The Innovator's Mindset. I think there's a lot of innovative things that you are doing in your practice, even though you might not think it that way, but I think you do some really incredible work and really kind of groundbreaking. So I'm really excited that you take time out of your podcast. We won't talk about how you skipped it last week, right? No,
Yes,
that's okay.
it was
That's
an
okay.
oversight. An oversight.
No,
I'm
no,
so
no,
happy
no,
you
no, no, you're
took
good.
a
You're
second
good.
chance on me. Really, thank
No,
you.
no, no, seriously. And I've been talking to Jana for a while, and just really incredible educator. And really, one of the things I appreciate about you is really how you focus on making sure that every kid gets what they need to be successful. I think that's something that really matters to me. So instead of me trying to give you, reading some bio or something, can you just tell everyone who you are, what you do say, and kind of how you got to that space?
Sure. Yes. So thank you so much for having me. My name is Jana Lee. Jana, the first
Ja,
name.
is it
Lee,
Jana
the
or
last.
Jana?
No, it is Jana. But
Okay.
when I to be dramatic, I'll say Jana. Don't call me
Okay.
that though. Just keep it
Yeah.
Jana. I am I guess once an educator, always an educator, right? But I started my teaching as a special education teacher in a high needs school district in the South Bronx of New York, where I was part of a founding team of a all girls public school. And so in being part of the development of that school, I quickly became part of, the creation of our special education department,
Mhm.
curriculum design, instructional coaching, and in serving our students that had very diverse backgrounds, not just in terms of their academic,
Right.
you know, understanding, but truly came from some challenging environments. I had to work hard to find a way to not let their circumstances define what I believed they were capable of. And so in kind of, fine tuning my craft and being in multiple different roles, I wanted to truly expand the impact. And that ultimately inspired me to develop Jana Lee Consulting, which is an organization that provides professional development and training and resources to school leaders and teachers.
And you can actually see all of Jana Lee's website, all the stuff that she does there too. So if you want to kind of explore a little bit more about that too, one of the things that you said, and I think it's interesting because you talked about like, hey, we have a lot of kids who are coming from really, tough backgrounds, having, tough situations. But also, I think one of the things that you do in your work is really like understanding that, hey, we all have different experiences, but how do we help kids move forward without us? Too, right? Like you're not just like kids like, hey, you've had this, so your life's never going to be good. It's like, how do you help kids kind of figure out their own pathway? And that's something I'm really passionate about is really empowering kids so that they don't need us, that they don't feel they're dependent upon a teacher or someone else to find a pathway forward. So how do you do that work in your context? And maybe start with how you did it, in your role back when you were, with schools and now that you're consulting with them.
Sure. So, in my role as a teacher, I kind of had to let student product speak for itself.
Mhm.
So, giving students an opportunity to, and I hate this buzzword because it's such a buzzword, but really give the students an opportunity to engage with the task or the work and move through that productive struggle, as we say.
Yeah.
And then use what I saw they were doing or not doing as the means by which to provide them with next steps and targeted feedback. And, that has become part of what I've coined the check for under, well, I haven't coined it, but what I use quite frequently as the check for understanding framework, an opportunity for teachers in their practice to pull small groups on the fly based on what we see students know and are able to do, not necessarily what we think they are capable of.
Hmm.
So kind of putting to the side, hey, who's classified? Who is my, who are the students that typically struggle? Well, I know my students so well and I know that they're always going to get it wrong. Or, who is the behavior child? Or on the other side of that, who are the students that always get it right or are considered gifted and talented? We kind of take all of that, like we kind of push all of that to the side
Hmm.
and we just base it on a piece of work. And so I had leadership that really trained us in that when I was in the Bronx. And then I use that framework. My team and I bring that framework to schools now to help teachers in feeling like they can support their diverse learners and they can truly give all students what they need, but they have to let go of their own preconceived notions
Right.
of what students are or are not capable of. And that's really tough. That's tough for teachers to do because teachers and leaders, they want to help. They want their students to be successful. And I think oftentimes that comes with teachers' automaticity in holding the hand or in, constantly, what do you need? Or how can I help you? And sometimes we've just got to let them go and then use what we see to develop those next steps.
So one of the things that I really get, and you mentioned, because it's like you talked about this in leadership and teaching, and one of the things that I found that a lot of people who have been inspired by an administrator, really talk about an administrator that helped them in their career path, was something that you kind of referenced, is that they would put them in a situation where they were just a little bit not ready for, and get them in that. Do you know what I mean? Like that person's like, I don't think I can do this. And it's like, no, 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 you can. And then they would always kind of like level up. But it was that belief in them that was really important. Is that kind of what you're talking about? Because I think that, to me, like there's so many administrators that they would ask me to do stuff. I'm like, I can't do that. And then they're like, no, and they kind of support you along the way, but then you kind of go through it. And it's like that challenge really brought out the best in you, as opposed to like, hey, we're just going to get you to do the bare minimum of what you can do already. So is that kind of what you're talking about?
That's
When you said
exactly what I'm talking about. I'm going to name three people: Devin Eisenberg, Lee Marie Loriano, Christina McNamee. I will never forget their names.
Hmm.
They were my leaders when I was a teacher and back, over 20 years ago. Why do I not forget their names? Because they told me that it was okay to take risks.
Mhm.
They got into my room and gave me supportive feedback on whatever it is they were expecting or wanting me to do. And they let me lead even when I was sure that I wasn't ready for it.
Mhm.
They took the step back and allowed me to be in the driver's seat, not just in my classroom, but also in how I was supporting, or part of our sort of school community and culture as a whole. So there was no assumption by them that anybody or teachers knew how to do all of the things that they were asking them to do, but they did create a space where they allowed all of us to feel like it was okay to take risks and become more confident in our pedagogy because of that. One of the number one things that I tell leaders now when it comes to us working directly with teachers is you have to mimic and repeat that it is okay for them to fail, that it is okay for it to not go the way they might want it to go, that it's okay for them to take those risks. Because once you open that door, teachers are going to feel much more confident. And we learn by doing. So leadership has to create a space where teachers feel like they can do the things, even if it means it's not going to go, you know, possibly as expected.
Okay, so you reminded me of a quote, and I had to like Google it while we're sitting here. And I don't know if you know this quote, but this is going into toolbox because it is like exactly your philosophy. It is from Charlie Wardle. It says, "A bird sitting on a tree is never afraid of the branch breaking because its trust is not on the branch, but on its own wings. Always believe in yourself." Which I think is like that's what you're instilling, is that, that when you talk about that, as soon as you started talking about that, I'm like, oh, that's like so, I'm like bird branch quote.
All listen, In an industry that is
Yeah.
constantly changing,
Yeah.
what do we have left? We have, you know, we have to be able, we've got the ownership, we've got clarity, and we've got trustworthiness.
Mhm.
Those are the three things that we want to be able to build within the fabric of our school community, so that whether it's the curriculum that's changing or another program or another initiative or another this or that, you still have a foundation by which your teachers feel supported.
Mhm. So you said this, and this was you brought this up earlier, and now I'm going to compliment myself.
Please do. Let me pull out the
Well,
red card. Okay,
somebody
go.
has to
I'm
do it.
ready.
No, and I maybe it's not me complimenting myself, but it's actually saying a compliment I received that I was very proud of.
Okay.
Somebody read the Innovator's Mindset, and they said to me, and I thought of you when you were kind of talking some of the work that you've done. So one of the things I really love about the Innovator's Mindset is that you have taken like a special education, inclusion type thinking, and you said, no, this actually is for all students, at every kid. And so one of that, and I thought about that when you're like, because you're not saying curriculum design and special education as two separate things. You're saying that it's connected. And I think that to me with like inclusion, really kind of thinking that way. So kind of like walk us through that because I'm
Sure.
seeing you shake your head up and down,
Yeah.
but that is like my belief is that a kid shouldn't have to be diagnosed with something or have like a special program to basically still get what they need. Every kid should do that. Now, obviously, there's complexities in the classroom. I understand that, but to do our best in that space. So, how do you see those two as
Yeah.
interconnected for every single student, as you mentioned?
So I think the idea of inclusion has become attached to special education.
Mm,
So, it's almost like the whole point of inclusion is that we find ways to include our students who are classified. And I want to, and I work hard to reframe that. Inclusion is about everybody. It's a big umbrella of just how are we finding ways to meet all of our students' needs, whether it's academic, social, emotional, mental, doesn't matter. And our teachers' needs and our leaders' needs. How are we doing that? How are we being as responsive as possible to all? And a part of inclusion includes our special education population. The other part of inclusion includes, students who might not be classified, but just struggle with whatever concept it might be. Another piece of inclusion might be, how are we using data in our professional learning communities, if you believe in those, to, make
I got a
res-
question. I got a question ready to go on PLCs right away.
how are we using data to make decisions? So inclusion should be really something that it integrates into every facet of a school community. And part of that is how are we serving our students who are classified, meaning students in our co-taught classrooms, students who might be in a resource room or self-contained or in an ABA room, and it all has its nuances dependent on student need, the type of environment that they are in, what their goals are, but that doesn't necessarily change for our students who are considered, gen ed peers. The way in which a teacher responds to those students might look different because, they don't have particular needs and as denoted in an IEP, but at the end of the day, it's still a teacher's responsibility to be responsive. And so a lot of our work involves, breaking down the barriers of how do we typically or how is inclusion typically seen, and how do we now build that as almost like it's everybody's responsibility to ensure that we are being responsive irregardless if our students have an IEP or not.
Now, this is the last question because I'm already over your time. We had a great conversation before,
We
and
did.
always the best conversations are the ones I don't record.
That's fine.
So one day when I'm ready to retire, all those will go off. But so I'm going to be totally honest with you. I'm not a big fan of PLCs, and I will tell you why.
Okay.
And it's not because I don't think they work,
No, I
but
know. Yeah.
because of the experience. And so I know. And is it fair to say you, before I get into it, would you say like you think they're actually really effective?
Uh,
Like, do you think they can be effective? Sorry.
Without with every bone in my body.
Okay, so so this is where I'm not saying PLCs suck, but I am saying when I was a teacher and I went through PLCs, they sucked.
I
And
believe.
this is my belief system. This is why you can I'm gonna let you talk me into why PLCs are so effective. Because I think an administrator went to a conference and they said PLCs are awesome, they work for our school, you should do them. And then someone just said, yeah. And then they just had no clue how to implement them. We didn't understand why we were doing it. It's like somebody saw something. So a lot of times I think things get really, a bad name for themselves because it's like a version that you just heard this work, but you don't really kind of work through it or maybe even make it personalized to the community to understand it. You don't change any of those things. So that's why I'm like, I will never say PLCs are terrible, but they can have a very terrible name because of poor implementation. Is that a fair statement?
I totally agree with you.
Yeah. So tell me like, so why do you think, so convince me, because I'm willing to be convinced. Like, why do you think they're so great for what happens in schools?
Well, I think you kind of answered your own question in a way. It's not that they're not great. It's that typically
Mhm.
they don't they don't go the way they need to go, and
Right.
that's what makes them not great.
Right.
Uh, PLCs, when there is a system in place, when it is rolled out systematically
Right.
with protocols, and we take assumptions off the table that teachers know how to do it, and when there is a clear definition of what they are and what they are not, that you are laying the groundwork for them to run autonomously and for teachers to truly use it as a time to have student-centered, focused conversations.
Mhm.
Now, you might have, leaders and teachers who say, "Oh yeah, we do that. We have student-centered conversations." My question would then be, "Okay, so what does that look like? Are we analyzing data and collectively creating next steps? Are we coming back to the table to say what's working and what's not? Are we looking at skills or are we just lesson planning?" PLCs are not just about lesson planning,
Mhm.
but they are about co-creating a lesson design based on what we see students need after we analyze student work. I mean, it's all about how are we rolling them out, and then not just that, but how are we sustaining the continuation of them to be impactful and effective. I came from a school where they were astronomically impactful.
Impactful.
And that's where I learned how to analyze data and look at student work and make these kind of decisions. When you don't have that, then yeah, don't waste your time. I would tell anybody, don't do PLCs just to do them. Don't waste your time or your energy or your resources.
Mhm. When you're so I try to connect just even stuff I just see. Somebody was talking just today. It was on, I think it was on Threads or something like that. I don't even know who it was, but they were saying like it is so, because it's interesting what you're saying because so many people complain about PLCs, but then I also see someone. What's the best people to learn from is other teachers. And I'm like, isn't that kind of what you just said? You know what
Yeah.
I mean? So it's like interesting. It's like, hey, we hate this, but also we want this thing that we should be, and so it was like kind of interesting listening to you because I think, I'm a big advocate. When I work with groups, one of the things I always say is like, I'm not the expert talking to you, the expert's sitting beside you. And so
Mhm.
I'm just sharing some ideas with you. Ultimately, you got to kind of figure out what this looks like in your context, in your community, because I don't understand. I don't know your people. I don't know who you serve. And so how do you figure that out?
Well, part of it is having to get your leadership to also understand how these are run. So often, I think leaders want to bring in PLCs and then kind of like dump them onto teachers
Right.
to say, okay, so this is what we're going to do. But what needs to happen is they need to be lead learners. They need to learn alongside their teachers in terms of, what are the options available to us for how PLCs are supposed to be run? And then over time, as leaders and teachers learn these processes, right? Even and I'm even talking just from a systematic level, like what do our agenda minutes look like? Where are we putting these minutes? As a leader, how am I checking to see that these things are happening? Am I on the ground with my teachers asking questions during these meetings? Am I learning about, you know, the skills that my students are struggling with in, math and ELA and even specials, art and PE. Leaders have to be able to talk the talk and walk the walk. And I think that that's nerve-wracking for many of them because if I'm being honest with you, George, I don't think a lot of leaders know how to do many of
Right.
those things.
Right.
And so that's not that that's a bad thing. It's just that, okay, so let's learn it. And then let's learn it together. And then you become a facilitator and you let your teachers do the work.
And that to me is like, if you really want to be effective as a teacher, as a leader in education, you have to be a great learner. And that's a great opportunity. So I know we're over time.
We're good.
But everyone connect with Jana Lee Consulting.com. It is in the bio below. She does some really incredible work. When you actually said, I don't know, you said Jana when you said it like that. Do you know what it remind me of? Do you ever, do you remember
That's gonna haunt me for the rest of my life now.
Jana? Do you know what it remind me of? Do you remember in Ferris Bueller at the end where it's like I think I can't remember who it is. It's like, it's Charlie
God,
Sheen, Charlie Sheen, and he's like
what does he
with Ferris
say?
Bueller's sister at the cop, and then there's like Shauna, Shauna, and now that's I'm like when you said it, I was like you said it, Jana, Jana.
Can I turn that into a meme?
Sure.
I feel like that needs to be something.
But you know what I'm talking about for the movie, right?
I do know.
Yeah, when
Yes.
you said it, I was like, you even
What?
said it with that inflection. You're like, Jana, Jana.
I have thought about having somewhere on my website, like click to hear the pronunciation, like my name, like highlighted. And
I did it for you. Me singing. You're welcome, everybody.
I love it. I love
All
it
right.
so much.
Hey, everyone. John, thanks so much for being on the podcast. It's really great to get to know you. I know you're doing some really incredible
Hey,
work. So I'm
hey,
really,
guys.
and you're really pushing. I'll tell you before I go, the thing that I really love about your work is that it's challenging some of the stuff that I think, and those are the people I really connect with. Is that I want to go into these spaces and become better because of them, and I know you do that for so many people. So
Likewise.
everyone connect with Jana. You can see her website and her socials down below. Thanks so much for being on the podcast. Thanks everyone for listening. I hope you have a wonderful day.
Yeah.